Did you know that at 3 a.m. this morning, God spoke your name into the darkness? Did you know that while you were lying awake, wondering if you'd wasted the years He gave you, heaven was preparing to shatter every lie you've believed about being too old, too late, too forgotten? What I'm about to tell you was sealed until this very moment. July 14th, 2025. It's late. You're tired. Maybe you're sitting in that same chair where you've spent countless nights wondering if God remembers your address. But this message was written in eternity with your name engraved in letters of fire. You weren't supposed to stumble across this video tonight. You were led here. Listen to me carefully. Chosen one. While the world sleeps, while your own family thinks your best days are behind you, something has been stirring in the heavens. Something with your name on it. Something that's been waiting 70, 80, maybe 90 years for this exact moment when you'd be desperate enough to believe that God's not finished with you yet. But here's what breaks my heart. And listen closely, because this will shake you to your core. Most people will scroll past this message. They'll let fear convince them it's too late. They'll let the enemy whisper that their season is over. And they'll miss the divine interruption that could change everything. Before we go deeper into what God showed me about July 14th, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you sow a seed tonight or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message is already resonating with your soul, go ahead and let faith move your heart. Tonight isn't just another Monday night. It's the split second before lightning strikes. It's the blinking cursor before God finishes the sentence He started writing in your mother's womb. Something is shifting in the spiritual realm right now. Can you feel it? That flutter in your chest? That sudden knowing that you're exactly where you're supposed to be? If you feel something stirring in your spirit right now, something ancient awakening, something that refuses to be silenced by age or circumstance, I need you to comment below, "I'm ready for the shift." Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Just respond. Because what happens next will determine whether you spend your remaining years wondering, what if? Or walking in the supernatural purpose God has been preparing you for your entire life. The clock is ticking. Chosen one. But not toward your ending, toward your beginning. What if I told you that every time you've whispered, "I'm too old," hell celebrated? What if every moment you believed your usefulness had expired, the enemy threw a party? What if the very lie that's been choking your dreams for decades is the exact opposite of what heaven has been preparing for this moment? Listen to me, chosen one. What if I told you your future isn't waiting for you tomorrow? It's arriving at midnight tonight, July 14th, 2025, for 70, 80, maybe 90 years. You've been carrying lies that were never yours to bear. The world has been whispering poison in your ear so long, you've started believing its truth. But tonight, we're going to expose every single deception that's been stealing your destiny. Lie number one, you're irrelevant now. They look at your gray hair and see decline. They see your slower walk and assume you're walking toward your exit. But what if I told you that your wrinkles are God's credentials? What if every line on your face is a degree from the University of Life? Signed by the Almighty Himself, Moses was 80 when God said, "Now you're ready." Not when he was young and strong and full of energy, when he was 80, when the world would have handed him a retirement watch. God handed him the assignment of a lifetime. Exodus 7:7 tells us plainly, Moses was 80 years old and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. 80 years old, and God said, "Perfect. Now you know enough about failure to handle success. Now you've been broken enough to carry my power without it breaking you." Lie number 2. Your body has slowed, so has your usefulness. They see you taking medication and think you're winding down. But what if your slower pace is actually God's rhythm for this generation? What if He's been teaching you to move at heaven's speed, not the world's panic? Sarah laughed at 90 because she thought her body was too old for miracles. But Genesis 21:2 records the impossible. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him. At the very time, not a day early, not a moment late. Your body isn't failing you, beloved. It's been faithfully carrying the treasure God placed inside you until the exact moment the world would be desperate enough to receive it. Lie number 3. Let the next generation handle it. This might be the deadliest lie of all, because while you've been stepping back, thinking younger people should take the lead, this generation has been drowning in technology without wisdom, information without understanding, connection without true intimacy. They don't need more energy. They need more experience. They don't need more passion. They need more perseverance. They don't need someone who's never been broken to lead them. They need someone who's been shattered and put back together by the Master's hands. You are the key God hid in the attic, forgotten by men, but preserved by heaven for the exact moment the world would fall apart. And beloved, look around. The world is falling apart. The family structure is crumbling. Young people are lost. Anxiety and depression are destroying an entire generation. And you're sitting there thinking you're irrelevant. Here's what heaven sees when they look at you. They see someone who raised children without Google telling them how. They see someone who built marriages without dating apps. They see someone who survived wars, recessions, losses that would destroy weaker souls. They see someone who learned to pray when prayer was their only option, who learned to trust God when trusting God was the difference between sanity and madness. You didn't miss your future. It was delayed for tonight, delayed until the world became broken enough to need what you carry, delayed until this generation became desperate enough to listen to voices that have been tested by fire, delayed until America became lost enough to value the wisdom that only comes through walking with God through decades of storms. The prophet Joel saw this moment when he declared in Joel 2:28, "And afterward, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions." Did you catch that? Your old men will dream dreams, not remember old dreams, will dream dreams. Present tense, active voice. Tonight. But here's the warning that's burning in my spirit. This window won't stay open forever. This divine appointment has an expiration date. The door that's cracking open tonight will close when the sun rises if you don't walk through it. Right now, at this very moment, I can feel heaven holding its breath, waiting for your response. Angels are leaning forward. The cloud of witnesses is watching. And God Himself is asking the question that will determine your eternity. Will you finally believe what I've always known about you? If you feel that fire igniting in your chest, if something ancient is stirring in your spirit, if you're tired of letting the world define your expiration date, then I need you to do something that will shake hell and activate heaven. Type, I accept the call, right now. Let hell hear it. Let heaven record it. Let your own spirit finally agree with what God has been saying about you for decades. Because what I'm about to show you next will prove that every closed door, every rejected dream, every moment you felt forgotten was actually God positioning you for the greatest chapter of your life. But only if you're brave enough to turn the page. You've been asking the wrong question for decades, haven't you? You've been whispering into the darkness, God, why me? Why did I have to bury my spouse while others celebrated golden anniversaries? Why did my children drift away while my neighbor's family stays close? Why did my dreams die slow, agonizing deaths, while others seem to glide through life untouched? But what if I told you that you've been asking the wrong question entirely? Let me paint you a picture of your life. Chosen one, I see you in those sterile hospital corridors at 2 a.m., holding the hand of someone you love more than life itself, begging God for just one more day, one more conversation, one more chance to say goodbye properly. I see you watching your adult children build lives that seem to have no room for the wisdom you've spent 70 years accumulating. I see you sitting in church pews where you once served faithfully, now feeling invisible while younger voices lead and newer faces get the attention. I see you counting pennies at the grocery store, choosing between medications and decent food, wondering how a lifetime of hard work led to this kind of financial humiliation. You remember when people valued your opinion, don't you? When your voice carried weight in rooms that mattered. Now you watch the world rush past you like you're standing still, like your decades of experience somehow expired with your youth. Here's what breaks my heart most. You've been blaming yourself. You've been carrying guilt like a backpack full of stones, convinced that somehow you failed. Somehow you weren't good enough. Somehow you deserved the parade of losses that marched through your life. But listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter every lie you've believed about your suffering. The enemy didn't come for your house. He came for your future. You see, the devil doesn't waste his best ammunition on empty targets. He doesn't send his most vicious attacks against people who pose no threat to his kingdom. Satan doesn't orchestrate decades-long campaigns of warfare against ordinary folks living ordinary lives. But you, chosen one, you were never ordinary. Think about Job for a moment. The Bible tells us in Job 1:8 that God Himself pointed Job out to Satan. Have you considered my servant Job? The Almighty basically put a target on Job's back. Why? Because Job carried something precious, righteousness that could withstand any storm. And what happened? Hell unleashed everything it had. You think your trials were random. You think that heart attack at 62 was just bad genetics. You think losing your life savings in that investment scam was just bad luck. You think watching your marriage crumble was just two people growing apart? No. You were marked before you could even speak your own name. Consider Anna, the prophetess. Luke 2:36-37 tells us she was a widow for most of her life, spending decades in the temple, praying and fasting while others questioned why she never remarried, never moved on, never accepted that her best years were behind her. But Anna knew something they didn't. She knew she was waiting for something that would make every year of solitude worth it. And at 84 years old, she became the first person to proclaim Jesus as the Messiah to all of Jerusalem. Every year of her waiting wasn't wasted time. It was preparation time. And Caleb, at 85 years old, when everyone expected him to settle into retirement, he stood before Joshua and declared, "Give me this mountain, not give me a rocking chair, not give me a quiet corner to fade away in. Give me the mountain with the giants on it. Give me the impossible battle that everyone else is afraid to fight." You weren't forgotten, beloved. You were forged. Every year of silence was sandpaper on your crown. Every scar on your soul is a sword being sharpened. Every night you cried into your pillow was the sound of a warrior being refined in the furnace of affliction. The enemy saw what heaven placed inside you before you ever did. He saw the authority you'd carry in your golden years. He saw the wisdom that would flow from your lips like honey. He saw the prayers that would move mountains and the testimony that would resurrect dying faith in others. So, he came early. He came hard. He came with everything he had. That depression that nearly killed you in your 40s, that was hell trying to silence the voice that would comfort thousands in their darkest hours. That financial ruin that left you eating beans and rice for months. That was the enemy trying to kill the faith that would become your greatest weapon. That betrayal that shattered your trust. That was warfare against the love that would heal broken hearts across your community. You thought the storm was random, but it was targeted warfare. Hell saw what heaven placed in you before you ever did. You weren't weak, chosen one. You were dangerous. That's why hell came early. Every attack was proof of your potential. Every battle was evidence of your calling. Every scar was the enemy's admission that he couldn't kill what God had planted in you. But here's what terrifies the kingdom of darkness about this moment. About July 14th, 2025, they know their time is up. They know the refining is complete. They know that what they tried to destroy for decades is about to emerge stronger, wiser, and more powerful than ever. The question that will determine everything moving forward is this: now that you know why you were targeted, what are you going to do with the weapons that warfare created in you? There are moments when God breaks protocol. Tonight is one of them. For 70 years, maybe 80, you've been operating under heaven's standard timeline. You've been told that change takes years, that transformation is a process, that God moves slowly and deliberately through the seasons of your life. But what if I told you that everything you thought you knew about divine timing is about to be shattered in the next few minutes? Listen to me carefully. Chosen one, there's a difference between God's usual way of working and what happens when he decides to interrupt the natural order. Tonight, July 14th, 2025, isn't just another date on your calendar. It's a divine interruption. It's the moment when heaven stops following the rules and starts rewriting them. The chessboard is shaking. Can you feel it? Every piece you thought was permanently positioned in your life, your age, your limitations, your so-called retirement years, God is about to move them all in one swift motion that will leave the enemy stunned and your family speechless. Heaven is rolling back the curtain. Right now, as these words hit your spirit, the veil between the natural and supernatural is becoming thinner than tissue paper. What you've prayed for in secret, what you've given up on, what you've buried under years of disappointment, it's all about to be exposed to the light of God's impossible timing. The script has been flipped. You thought you were in the final act of your life story. You thought the curtain was coming down. You thought your greatest moments were memories. But God is holding a different script, and He's about to hand you lines you never thought you'd get to speak. You want to talk about divine interruptions. Let me show you how God operates when He decides to break His own timeline. Moses was tending sheep at 80 years old. 80, in a culture where most people were dead by 50. Moses was collecting Social Security and thinking his best days were grazing behind him. But Exodus 3:2 tells us that the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. God didn't gradually prepare Moses for leadership. He didn't ease him into his calling. One moment, Moses was a forgotten shepherd. The next moment, he was standing before Pharaoh demanding freedom for an entire nation. That's a divine interruption. Abraham was 99 years old when God appeared to him and said, "I will confirm my covenant between me and you and will greatly increase your numbers." Genesis 17:2. 99. Sarah was 90. They were way past Medicare eligibility, way past reasonable expectations, way past what anyone would consider possible. But Genesis 21:2 declares, Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him. At the very time. Not early, not late, but at the exact moment God had predetermined before the foundation of the world. That's a divine interruption. Anna the prophetess was 84 years old when she encountered baby Jesus in the temple. Luke 2:36-38 tells us she never left the temple but worshiped night and day, fasting and praying. 84 years of waiting, serving, believing. And then, in one moment, everything she had lived for walked through those temple doors. She became the first evangelist, proclaiming the Messiah to everyone who would listen. That's a divine interruption. Do you see the pattern? Do you understand what I'm trying to show you? God doesn't just use old people. He specializes in them. He waits until the world writes you off, until your own family starts planning your memorial service, until you start believing the lie that your productive years are behind you. And then, when everyone least expects it, He breaks protocol, because here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your secret weapon. The devil has been lying to you, telling you that 70 is too old, that 80 is impossible, that 90 is ridiculous. But God looks at your wrinkles and sees wisdom. He looks at your gray hair and sees authority. He looks at your supposed limitations and sees the exact qualifications He needs for what He's about to do. You are not too old. You are exactly old enough for the kind of glory that breaks systems, silences devils, and wakes a nation. You are perfectly aged for the kind of miracle that makes CNN scratch their heads and your neighbors start asking questions about your God. The shift you thought would take decades, God scheduled it for July 14th, tonight. Not next year when you feel more ready. Not next month when your circumstances look better. Tonight, when you're tired, when you're doubting, when you least expect heaven to invade your ordinary Monday evening. But here's what's going to shock you. This isn't just about changing your circumstances. This is about changing your nature. God isn't just opening doors for you. He's transforming you into the kind of person who doesn't need doors. You become the earthquake that shakes them off their hinges. Jeremiah 1:5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Set you apart for what? For this moment, for this divine interruption, for this shift that's been scheduled in heaven's calendar since before you took your first breath. If this is burning in your chest right now, if something ancient is stirring in your spirit, I need you to comment below, "I receive the shift. Let it be sealed." Don't analyze it. Don't question it. Just respond to what the Holy Spirit is doing in your heart right now, because what happens in the next few minutes will determine whether you step into the supernatural acceleration God has prepared, or spend your remaining years wondering what could have been if you had just said yes when heaven interrupted your ordinary life. The divine interruption isn't coming. Chosen one, it's here. The question is, are you ready to let God break his own rules for your breakthrough? You know what haunts me about conversations with people your age? It's not the stories about what you've lost. It's the silence about what you've never spoken. The dreams you buried so deep, you convinced yourself they were never real. The calling you felt at 25 that got drowned out by mortgages and marriages and the daily grind of just surviving. But listen to me carefully. Chosen one. There's a room in your spirit you haven't entered in years. A sacred space where God deposited something before you even knew his name. And while you've been living outside of yourself, surviving instead of thriving, settling for ordinary when you were designed for extraordinary, he never left that room. Can you feel it right now? That faint stirring behind your ribs? That's not nostalgia, beloved. That's recognition. Your soul remembering what your mind forgot. You see, the enemy's greatest victory wasn't getting you to sin. It was getting you to believe you were ordinary, getting you to think that sacred room was just youthful imagination, getting you convinced that at 70, 80, 90 years old, God had moved on to younger vessels. But what if I told you something that will shatter that lie forever? What if the reason you felt different your whole life, the reason you never quite fit into the boxes others wanted to put you in, the reason you carried that unexplainable ache for something more, wasn't because you were broken, it was because you were chosen? Think about Anna, the prophetess. Luke 2:36 tells us she was 84 years old. 84. A widow who had spent decades in the temple, fasting and praying while everyone around her probably whispered, "Poor old Anna, still hanging around, still believing God's going to show up." But here's what breaks me open every time I read this passage. When Mary and Joseph brought baby Jesus to the temple, it wasn't the young priests who recognized him. It wasn't the educated scribes or the powerful Pharisees. It was Anna, the 84-year-old woman who had been waiting, watching, believing when everyone else had given up. Luke 2:38 says she gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. She became the first evangelist at 84 years old. You want to know why? Because while everyone else was rushing around, building careers and accumulating wealth, Anna was in the room. She was in that sacred space where God whispers secrets to those who refuse to stop believing. Your journals are still there. You know, the ones you wrote in when your heart was on fire and you believed God could use you to change the world. Your prayers, the ones you prayed when you were young and desperate and absolutely convinced that heaven was listening. Your unfinished assignments, the ones you abandoned when life got hard and bills got high and people told you to be practical. They're all there, waiting. But here's what's going to shock you. While you've been mourning what you thought you missed, God has been preparing you for what you never imagined. Every tear you cried in secret was collected in heaven's bottles. Every dream that seemed to die was actually being refined in the fire. Every season, when you felt forgotten, was actually when you were being prepared for something the world has never seen. You think you missed the move of God? You think you were born in the wrong generation? You think your time has passed? Let me tell you the truth. That's going to change everything. You didn't miss the move of God. You are the move of God. Moses was 80 when he faced Pharaoh. Abraham was 99 when he received Isaac. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." You think God's timing got confused with your birth certificate. You're not a passenger in God's plan. Beloved, you're the ignition key. The world looks at you and sees retirement. God looks at you and sees deployment. The world sees your limitations. Heaven sees your qualifications. The world counts your years. God counts your victories. But here's what terrifies hell about you right now. You've stopped caring what people think. You've buried enough friends to know what really matters. You've lost enough dreams to know which ones are worth fighting for. You've walked through enough fire to know that what doesn't kill you doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you dangerous. You thought God was ignoring you during those silent years. He wasn't ignoring you. He was preserving you. You were too dangerous to be released early, too powerful to be exposed before the enemy was done underestimating you. Right now, there are grandchildren who need to see what real faith looks like. There are communities that need to remember what wisdom sounds like. There are nations that need to witness what happens when someone who's been tested by fire finally decides to burn bright, that room in your spirit. It's time to open the door. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Right now. Because July 14th, 2025 isn't just another date on your calendar. It's the day heaven stops whispering and starts shouting your name. But the question that will determine whether you step into this hidden assignment or spend your remaining years wondering what could have been is this: will you finally believe that the best is yet to come? So, you felt it last night, didn't you? The pull, the stirring, the fire beneath your ribs that made you sit up straighter in that old recliner. Something shifted in the atmosphere around your life on July 14th. Something ancient awakened. Something that had been sleeping for decades suddenly opened its eyes. And then it was quiet, like heaven paused, like something sacred waited and waited. You prayed for God to move. He did, but you froze. Dear chosen one, I can see you right now, sitting there with that familiar ache in your chest. The same ache you've carried for months, maybe years. It's the ache of knowing you felt something real, something supernatural, something that defied every logical explanation your 70-year-old mind tried to give it. But when the moment came to respond, when the door swung wide open and heaven itself leaned in to hear your answer, you hesitated. You stood at the edge of everything you've been praying for, and fear whispered just loud enough to make you step back. The door was open, and you stood at the edge. Now you're haunted by the silence that followed, not God's silence, your own, the deafening quiet of a soul that felt the call but couldn't find the courage to answer. Listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will either set you free or convict you so deeply you'll never be the same. That hesitation you felt, that moment when your spirit leaped but your mind said wait, that wasn't wisdom. That was the same spirit that made the rich young ruler walk away from Jesus grieving. Mark 10:22 tells us he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. But it wasn't his wealth that destroyed him. It was his hesitation. Jesus looked at him with love and gave him the invitation of a lifetime. And he walked away sad because he couldn't let go of what he thought was protecting him. Your great possessions aren't money. They're excuses. They're the comfortable lies you've been telling yourself about being too old, too tired, too set in your ways. They're the familiar prison of, I've missed my chance, that feels safer than the terrifying freedom of, God's not finished with me yet. But here's what's eating at you right now, and don't you dare deny it. Deep in your spirit, you know you felt something real on July 14th. You know that stirring wasn't your imagination. You know that sudden sense of purpose, that flutter of hope, that inexplicable knowing that your story isn't over. You know it came from heaven. And now, you're tormented by one question that won't let you sleep. What if I missed it? Let me ask you something that's going to cut straight through your soul. How many more times do you think God is going to knock? How many more supernatural moments do you think you'll get before the door of opportunity closes forever? You think you have time, but time is the one thing you're running out of. Every sunrise you witness could be your last chance to say yes to the calling that's been burning in your chest for decades. Every sunset could be the final opportunity to stop hiding behind age and start walking in authority. Moses felt the call at the burning bush. But what if he had said, let me think about it. Lord, I'm 80 years old, maybe tomorrow. There would be no exodus, no parting of the Red Sea, no deliverance for an entire nation. Samuel heard God calling his name in the temple. But what if he had rolled over and gone back to sleep? The greatest prophet in Israel's history would have died an ordinary temple boy. Mary received the angel's announcement. But what if she had said, this is too much. I need time to process. The Savior of the world might never have been born. The difference between those who changed history and those who died with regret wasn't their qualifications. It was their response time. It was their willingness to say yes before they felt ready. And you, sitting there in that chair, wrestling with the silence that followed your hesitation, you think you've missed your moment. But what if the silence isn't God's rejection? What if it's his patience? What if he's giving you one more chance to get this right? Revelation 3:20 declares, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in to him and dine with him, and he with me." Notice Jesus doesn't say, he knocks once and walks away. He stands. He waits. He's still there even after your hesitation. But here's the truth that should terrify you into action. Patience has limits. Even divine patience. Even God's love comes with deadlines. Ask the generation that wandered in the wilderness for 40 years because they hesitated at the edge of their promised land. Ask the 5 foolish virgins who hesitated to buy oil and found the door shut when the bridegroom arrived. The silence you're experiencing right now isn't emptiness, it's anticipation. Heaven is holding its breath, waiting to see if you'll finally find the courage to walk through the door that's still open. Your age isn't a disqualification. Abraham was 75 when God called him to leave everything. Your past isn't a barrier. David was an adulterer and murderer when God called him a man after his own heart. Your limitations aren't limitations at all, Moses stuttered. But God used his mouth to speak judgment over Pharaoh. The question isn't whether you're qualified. The question is whether you'll finally stop disqualifying yourself. I can feel some of you pushing back right now. But what if I'm wrong? What if it wasn't really God? What if I'm just a foolish old person chasing impossible dreams? Let me ask you this. What if you're right? What if that stirring was real? What if God really is calling you to something extraordinary in these final years of your life? What if your hesitation is the only thing standing between you and the greatest chapter of your entire existence? The silence after the shift isn't God's absence. It's your opportunity. The door that opened on July 14th is still open, but it won't stay that way forever. If you can't stay silent anymore, if the regret of hesitation is louder than the fear of stepping forward, if you're finally ready to trust that God's call on your life doesn't have an expiration date, comment now. I can't stay silent anymore. Because the silence ends when you finally find your voice. How many more confirmations do you need? Chosen one. How many more sleepless nights will you lie there feeling that stirring in your chest? That ancient knowing that refuses to be silenced, only to wake up the next morning and convince yourself it was just wishful thinking. How many more times will you feel God's finger tap your shoulder in the grocery store, in the doctor's waiting room, in that quiet moment before sleep, and you'll whisper back, "Not yet. Lord, I'm not ready. Maybe tomorrow." Listen to me carefully. I can hear it in the distance now. Do you hear it too? That's the sound of the final train pulling into the station. The engine is running, steam is rising. The conductor is checking his pocket watch one last time. The door is wide open. But the platform is almost empty. Heaven can't wait forever. You want to know what terrifies me more than anything else I see in the spiritual realm. It's not the darkness advancing. It's not the chaos erupting around the globe. It's watching God's chosen ones standing on the platform, tickets in their hands, watching train after train depart while they convince themselves the next one will be more convenient. Jeremiah 8:20 cuts through the noise with surgical precision. The harvest is past, the summer has ended, and we are not saved. Do you understand what that means? That's not talking about eternal salvation. That's talking about the window of opportunity that opens and closes according to divine timing. The prophet is weeping because he watched an entire generation miss their moment. They had every sign, every warning, every invitation, but they delayed. They hesitated. They waited for a better time that never came. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a 73-year-old woman in Ohio who's been feeling God call her name for 6 months. She knows she's supposed to write that book. She knows her story could save marriages, heal families, give hope to widows drowning in despair. But every morning she looks in the mirror and whispers, "I'm too old. Who would listen to me?" There's an 81-year-old man in Texas who wakes up every day with fire burning in his bones to speak truth to his community. He's seen enough, lived enough, learned enough to guide a generation that's lost its way. But he sits in his recliner and tells himself, "My time has passed. That's a job for younger men." There's a 68-year-old grandmother in Florida whose prayers could shift the atmosphere over her entire city. She carries authority in the spirit realm that would make demons tremble. But she whispers her prayers in secret and keeps her power hidden because someone told her decades ago that women should be seen and not heard. How many more of you are going to let fear write the final chapter of your story? Here's the truth that's going to shake you to your core. The greatest danger to your calling isn't rebellion. The greatest danger isn't sin. The greatest danger isn't even the devil himself. The greatest danger is hesitation. Hell doesn't need you to reject your calling. It just needs you to delay it one more day. Satan doesn't have to convince you that you're not chosen. He just has to convince you that you're not ready. He doesn't have to steal your gifts. He just has to convince you to wait until you feel more qualified, more prepared, more confident. But here's what hell knows that you've forgotten: divine timing doesn't wait for your convenience. God's appointments don't get rescheduled because you're having a bad day. The harvest window doesn't stay open just because you're not ready to work in the field. Moses was 80 when God called him to Pharaoh's palace. Did Moses feel ready? Did he feel qualified? Read Exodus 4 and watch a man make every excuse in the book. "I'm not eloquent. I'm slow of speech. Send someone else." But God didn't say, "Take your time, Moses. Get back to me when you feel ready." He said, "I'll be your mouth. I'll teach you what to say. Now go." Sarah was 90 when she conceived Isaac. Do you think her body felt ready? Do you think she felt young enough, strong enough, prepared enough to birth the promise? But God's timing doesn't wait for your biology to cooperate. Abraham was 75 when God told him to leave everything familiar and follow a promise he couldn't see. Did Abraham feel ready to uproot his entire life? Did he feel equipped to father nations? But he went, not because he felt ready, but because when God says go, ready is a luxury you can't afford. You've been waiting for the perfect moment, the moment when your health is better, when your finances are stable, when your family understands, when you feel more confident, when the stars align and everything makes sense. But what if I told you that the perfect moment is a myth designed to keep you paralyzed? What if the only moment that matters is the moment you say yes, despite feeling unprepared? The train is at the platform right now. July 14th, 2025 isn't just another date. It's the departure time that's been posted in heaven's schedule since before you took your first breath. The conductor is calling all aboard to a generation that's been waiting for permission they already received decades ago. Your ticket has been paid for. Your seat has been reserved. Your destination has been prepared. But you have to board the train. You have to stop rehearsing your excuses and start walking toward your assignment. You have to stop analyzing whether you're worthy and start accepting that you're chosen. The platform is emptying. Chosen one. The steam is rising. The wheels are beginning to turn. And the most heartbreaking sound in all of creation is the whistle of a departing train carrying empty seats that had names written on them. Your name is still on one of those seats. But the question burning in the throne room of heaven tonight is this: will you finally stop hesitating and claim what's already yours? You know who you are. 3 days ago, on July 14th, something happened in your spirit that you haven't been able to shake. You felt it, didn't you? That burning in your chest when I spoke about God not being finished with you. That flutter when I mentioned your name being written in eternity. That moment when everything inside you wanted to leap, to respond, to finally say yes to what you've been running from for decades. Your hand hovered over that keyboard. Your heart was thundering so loud you thought the neighbors might hear it. You almost typed those 4 words, "I receive the shift." You were seconds away from breaking the silence you've wrapped around your dreams like burial clothes. But you pulled back. Dear one, I need you to know something that might break your heart and heal it at the same time. You pulling back wasn't disobedience, it was preparation. Sometimes God allows us to feel the weight of His calling before we're ready to carry it, just so we know it's real. Think about Moses at the burning bush. Exodus 3:11 tells us his first response wasn't, "Here I am, send me." It was, "Who am I that I should go?" Moses felt the call, but fear made him hesitate. Yet God didn't walk away. He waited. He provided answers. He gave Moses time to process the magnitude of what was being asked. You felt your chest burn on July 14th. You sensed something shifting in the heavens with your name attached to it. But when the moment came to step forward, something held you back. Was it fear? Was it that voice that's been whispering for 30 years that you're too old, too tired, too broken? Was it the memory of every dream that died, every door that slammed shut, every time you said yes to God, and it felt like He said no to you? I understand. I've been there, standing at the edge of promise, looking down into the unknown, feeling the wind of God's Spirit at my back, but terrified to jump. Because what if this time is like all the others? What if hope hurts again? But listen to me, chosen one. What you felt on July 14th wasn't your imagination. That stirring wasn't wishful thinking. That fire that ignited in your spirit when you heard your true identity called out, that was recognition. Your soul recognizing what your mind had forgotten. You think you missed your moment, but you didn't. You think the door closed when you hesitated, but it didn't. God's invitations don't expire with your indecision. His callings don't get rescinded because you needed time to process. Remember the parable of the 10 virgins in Matthew 25. 5 were wise, 5 were foolish. But here's what most people miss. They all fell asleep. Every single one of them. The wise ones weren't wise because they stayed awake. They were wise because when they heard the cry, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him," they had oil for their lamps, chosen one as we reach the end of this sacred moment together. I need you to carry these truths deep in your heart like precious gems that will never lose their shine. Remember, this July 14th, 2025 wasn't just another date on your calendar. It was God's divine appointment with your destiny. The stirring you felt, the fire that ignited in your spirit, the voice that called your name through the static of doubt, that was real. That was heaven breaking through to remind you that your story isn't over. It's just beginning its most important chapter. Remember that your age is not your limitation. It's your qualification. Every wrinkle tells a story of endurance. Every gray hair is a crown of wisdom. Every scar is proof that you survived what was meant to destroy you. Moses was 80 when he split the Red Sea. Sarah was 90 when she birthed a promise. Caleb was 85 when he conquered mountains. Your best days aren't behind you. They're being prepared right now in the throne room of heaven. And beloved, you must never forget this. You are not walking this journey alone. Even in your darkest moments, even when the silence feels deafening, even when you wonder if God remembers your address, He is there. He has never stopped working in your life. Every breath in your lungs is evidence of His faithfulness. Every sunrise is His signature on a new page of your story. But more than that, you have a family here. Thousands of believers who understand your struggle because they've walked the same path. We see you. We believe in you. We're praying for you. You're not just a viewer on a screen. You're our brother, our sister, our fellow warrior in this kingdom. When you hurt, we hurt. When you break through, we celebrate. This is more than a community. This is a covenant family bound together by faith, hope, and love. Let me ask you something that will echo in your heart long after this video ends. If God has brought you this far, through every storm that should have sunk you, through every valley that should have swallowed you, through every battle that should have broken you, what makes you think He's going to abandon you now? Before you leave this sacred space, I want to pray over you, not as a distant voice through a screen, but as someone who believes in the calling on your life and the power of God to fulfill it through you. A prayer for the chosen Heavenly Father. I place my hand on the shoulder of every precious soul who has journeyed with us tonight. Lord, you see the tears they've cried in secret. You know the dreams they've buried under disappointment. You feel the weight they carry, the questions they whisper in the dark, the hope they're afraid to hold too tightly. God, I pray that you would breathe fresh life into their weary spirits right now. Let them feel your presence like a warm embrace, reminding them that they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond understanding, and called beyond their own ability. Open doors that no man can shut. Provide in ways that defy logic. Heal what doctors can't touch. Restore what the enemy has stolen. Give them strength for today and hope for tomorrow. Let July 14th mark not just a moment of revelation, but the beginning of the greatest season of their lives. Surround them with your favor like a shield. Guide their steps, guard their hearts, and let them know beyond any shadow of doubt that their latter days will be greater than their former days. That you, who began a good work in them, will be faithful to complete it. In the mighty name of Jesus, who conquered death itself so that we might live abundantly, I pray. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share what's burning in your heart right now. What is God stirring up in your spirit? What dreams are coming back to life? Don't hold back. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to take their next step of faith. If you have questions, if you need prayer, if you just need someone to remind you that you matter, this community is here for you. We read every comment. We pray over every request. You are not alone in this journey. And if this message has touched your soul, if you felt God speaking directly to you tonight, please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. That friend who's been struggling, that family member who's lost hope, that neighbor who just needs to know their story isn't over. You might be the vessel God uses to awaken another chosen one who's been waiting for this exact message. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what God wanted to pour into you tonight. Thank you for being living proof that faith still exists, that hope still rises, and that God still moves in miraculous ways. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. Every week, we're releasing messages specifically designed to encourage, equip, and empower God's chosen ones. You belong here. This is your spiritual family, and we're building something beautiful together. Remember, beloved, July 14th was just the beginning. Your shift has started. Your mission is clear, and the God who called you is faithful to complete what he has started. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of your calling, rest in the certainty of his love, and know that your greatest days aren't behind you. They're just beginning. Go in peace, walk in power, and live in the fullness of who God created you to be. You are loved, you are chosen, and your story is far from over. God bless you mightily. Chosen one.